right. A great subject here. As she said, I'm Sandra Thies from the University of Nevada, Reno, and here to talk to you about Weather Girls on the Big Screen, stereotypes, sex appeal, and science. So here's just a brief history of the timeline of women in broadcast meteorology. Women were first hired in the 1950s as part of a gimmick to help get more viewership. Carol Reed was actually the first female broadcast meteorologist hired. They also used puppets and costumes at the same time. Then as we continue on through the 50s, in the late 50s, AMS decided to make their seal to try to get more respect for the weather community. It turns out that the first woman did not get a seal until 1972, and of the first 200 seals given, 197 of them were given to men, so only 3 women got those seals. Then we continue on through the 70s, where weather became happy weather and friendly weather. This is assumed to have happened because of the Vietnam War and how sad the news actually was, that they wanted the weather segments to be happier and more gimmicky, and women kind of reduced in being broadcast meteorologists. But with the addition of new graphics and the green screen and the Weather Channel, women went back into broadcast meteorology. Then we continue on with more new technology and graphics. However, still in 2010, only 21.6% of broadcast meteorologists are female. So what we did was we actually took this 2 pieces from Tammy Ruggles and Sean Potter, and they suggested a bunch of films that supposedly elevate women in meteorology, and not just women, but also men, but we focused on the women. And we watched these films. And I would say that they do not actually provide a positive stereotype or viewer of women in broadcast meteorology. We also heavily relied on Robert Henson's book to get a history of television meteorologists. Then we analyzed them and concluded a couple of things. So the movies listed and the TV show are To Die For, Weather Woman, Up Close and Personal, King of the Hill, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and Weather Girl. So we looked at intelligence and the lack of relevant education. We looked at the dependence upon men and the oversimplification of the weathercasting process, mostly focused on the weather part. Then we looked at appearance to see how females are portrayed on TV. So when we start off with intelligence, in the movies, 3 of the movies specifically said that these women did not have meteorology degrees. And those were Weather Girl, To Die For, and Up Close and Personal. As a matter of fact, King of the Hill is also on this list. It's implied because they hire a male who has a degree. The only one that did have a degree was the cartoon, and we wanted to look at this cartoon to see what was being portrayed to children and girls to see how their role models would be shaped. She did actually have a meteorology degree. Another aspect of intelligence is the dependence upon men. In the King of the Hill episode, she even specifically says, "I'm just glad I have someone to do my science for me," indicating that women do not know how to do the science of meteorology or forecast. And even in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, she needed to listen to the man to understand that she doesn't have to focus on her physical appearance, even though throughout the whole movie, they really do focus on her physical appearance. And this is very relevant in all of them. In To Die For, the man suggests that the only way the woman can rise to the top and be taken seriously is if she actually performs sexual favors for the men in the industry. The other issue that these movies are portraying is the oversimplification of the weathercasting process. Many people believe that we just read the forecast off a teleprompter. This, of course, is not the case. We actually go up there and we actually have no teleprompter to do the forecast. Mostly it's news anchors that have their teleprompter, but for the, most people do not have a teleprompter. Also, in the movies, they address the weather issue as using different adjectives to describe the word rain, which is also something we do not do. We actually do attempt to forecast. And they brush it off as weather report stuff. It is also assumed that the weather broadcast segment of the news is the lesser version of the news, and that the news part of the news is more important. So a lot of people use the weather part of the news as a stepping stone to get the more important jobs and higher up jobs of news anchor. Now we go into appearance, and these movies definitely use the over-sexualization of female weathercasters. I mean, it's almost self-explanatory, but even in the cartoon, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, she has glasses, and is portrayed as being a geek and a nerd, and they said she cannot be taken seriously unless she takes off the glasses and actually dyes her hair. And one of the directors in that movie actually makes a comment, says, "She's cute and super perky," to which the other director responds, "Well, those are the only things we look for in a TV weather person." And also you can see in Up Close and Personal, she had to dye her hair brunette in order to be taken seriously. And the low necklines and such, and the clothes, obviously accentuating body image. The other issue with females, meteorologists, and many females in careers, science or otherwise, they believe, especially in movies, it's portrayed as females cannot have a family and do a family life, but also have a career. And this is particularly detrimental to broadcast meteorologists because they are seen a lot. And so the idea is, or the speculation is that their body is ruined after pregnancy. And if you have a big belly, or if you're pregnant, you won't be taken seriously doing the weather. So you can't have a family and a serious career at the same time, which is, a big problem. Oh my, I am very quick here. So basically what we concluded is that these movies really do not elevate the importance of meteorologists, and specifically female meteorologists, which is a very big issue because we're trying to tell audience viewers very serious things. We're trying to get them to safety. We're trying to tell them to take shelter. We want to be taken seriously. And we also, as females, want to be considered role models to get young girls into the science field. So when we show movies that do not portray meteorologists in a correct aspect, this is putting different ideas in the audience members' heads, and I believe lessening our roles as to be taken seriously. And here are a few acknowledgments and people who paid the bills and references that we've used. Does anybody have any questions? Since we have time. You can step over to the microphone, please. Perfect.
Do you feel that there are any movies that portray women in a positive light and not a negative light in this aspect?
We have yet to find any. If you happen to find any, please let us know, because I would love to see that. Any other questions?